State Representative Matt Hall of the 63rd District is our guest. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, Tim.
It is great to see you again. Does this weather screw things up in Lansing, or has it had an impact on the schedule in the last couple of weeks or so?
Well, it has, and today's a holiday. Today's a state holiday. Happy President's Day, Tim.
Right. Yeah.
We had Martin Luther King Day last month, and then we had 3 days where the state government was shut down. So we've been working on some short weeks, which when it's your first month in office, every minute counts to get the office up and running. So I'm looking forward to a regular schedule, probably starting next week.
And I was talking to you a little bit last week in advance of our interview. It sounds like, you really had your nose to the grindstone to just try and get things organized and get the lay of the land up there and get your staff, doing what they need to do. How's that going?
Well, that's right. I think any time that you start a new job, it takes a little while to set your expectations and have, the work of the office you're responsible for reflect you. And so I've been spending more time in Lansing than I would like the first month doing that. But, I've also had some great responsibilities given to me also. I've been appointed chairman of the House Oversight Committee, which is very rare as a freshman. I've been appointed to the House Republican Campaign Committee, so I'm one of the leaders in making sure we send more Republicans next term to Lansing. And also I was appointed to the National Uniform Law Commission for the state of Michigan, where they work on areas of law that should be the same in every state. For example, the Uniform Commercial Code. So, being a freshman in Lansing is complex enough, and when you start ratcheting it up like that, I guess the speaker feels that I can handle it, and I'm grateful that he's put that much trust in me.
Now, as a freshman lawmaker, you get a gigantic office and a staff of like 50, or wait a minute, maybe not. Tell us a little bit about who you have on staff. You're allowed, what, 2 full-time staff members? Is that what lawmakers get?
That's right. We get 2 full-time staff members, and I actually just added on Aaron Porter, who worked on the House Oversight Committee last term, and that helps me because, again, I'm new to the House Oversight Committee, and he was there for the last chairman, Joe Graves, and he's there to kind of continue that work, which has become my most important policy committee. And as I mentioned last time, the House Oversight Committee is responsible for making sure government follows the law. I'll tell you, Tim, one thing that surprised me is I was reading some of the stuff going on in the departments, and they don't follow the law. And that can happen for a lot of reasons. It could be innocent. They don't understand the legislative intent. Mm-hmm. It could be that maybe they don't have enough resources. Or there could be a negative reason. They just aren't doing their job. And so the House Oversight Committee has to figure out why these things are going on and then help the department come up with a plan to solve it. Or if it's not clear, then pass a new law. The second thing it does is make sure that we're spending tax dollars appropriately. And so if there's any kind of fraud or misuse, the House Oversight Committee would then come in and work on that problem. So I'm grateful for that opportunity to chair that committee. It's important for the taxpayers in protecting good government.
Can you give us an example of where things maybe aren't being done exactly the way that you see it as according to the law?
Yeah, last September there was an audit done of Child Protective Services, and it kind of came out during lame duck, so it by the time the legislature had a hearing on it, there wasn't a lot that could be done. And so this term we're going to look at that again. And what we found was that Child Protective Services was not contacting a child when there's a report of danger within the 24 hours that they were required. They weren't always putting on the registry people who'd committed child abuse. So when they go in and they look, they wouldn't find there were some risk factors there. And there were many other ways that they failed that audit. And, these are very serious issues, and we need to make sure Child Protective Services is doing its job and keeping children safe. And that's why we're going to look into this again this term and make sure we can give them the resources they need, and also shine some light on these activities and encourage the administration to solve them.
Yep, and like you said, it could just be they don't have enough manpower or enough resources. It could be other things, so that's kind of up to your committee to try to get to the bottom of that and find a remedy.
That's right.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. There was the big issue, I think, probably in Lansing, probably the biggest issue since you've been up there and since this new session, was the governor's executive order that would have abolished 3 departments in the environmental quality, the DEQ, these oversight panels. And the legislature said, yeah, we want to keep it the way it is, and overrode that. First of all, tell us, what do these panels do, as I believe were created under the Snyder administration?
That's right. So basically, during the Snyder administration, a Republican governor, the legislature, had many hours of debate and passed a law that created these panels. And what these panels are an opportunity for the people that I serve to have a voice. These are representatives of the farming community, of small businesses, of local governments, who have an opportunity to give input before a new environmental regulation takes effect. And I think these panels created extra transparency and also allowed the taxpayers and those affected to have a voice. And a lot of times there are unintended consequences of these environmental regulations. And this was a way to prevent some of those unintended consequences from taking an effect by allowing people to have a voice before they took effect.
And Governor Whitmer wanted to get rid of these panels and what, then have just the environmentalists decide all the issues? Or?
That's right. And, in today's, Democrat Party of the Green New Deal, I'm not sure that we want a lot of unelected bureaucrats who are unaccountable making these decisions without input from the people they affect. And, what we sought to do was just have the same law apply to a Democrat administration as applied to a Republican administration. I think it's very fair. But the most important point here is simply, no matter who you are as governor, you cannot pass an executive order that violates the law. Under the Michigan Constitution, when that happens, the legislature has the power to overturn that executive order. And that's all that happened here.
And the Michigan Farm Bureau president, Carl Bednarski, was very happy about that. On behalf of our more than 42,000 farm family members, he says, Michigan Farm Bureau applauds the quick work and actions of the House and Senate to protect and retain the 3 oversight panels within the Department of Environmental Quality. When I started reading about this, the first thing that popped up, I went to a couple of public hearings as they were talking about some drain issues here in Calhoun County. And it gets into things like beaver dams, and it gets into things like new bridges and, dredging certain drains and maybe changing them around. And my thought was, boy, I am glad these old farmers are here because they know stuff. They just have some common sense insight that they've accumulated over 30, 40, 50 years of being there literally in the trenches that I think we ought to at least hear.
Oh, I agree 100%, Tim. I mean, I've been honored to spend some time with some of our great farmers around here in Calhoun County, and they tell me stories about 40 years ago talking to the state representative and explaining the very same thing. And these are very smart people with a lot of experience, and I think government benefits greatly from their input in the process before new environmental regulations take effect, so we don't have unintended consequences.
State Representative Matt Hall is our guest, and you guys were in town last week along with the governor talking about skilled trades and that sort of stuff.
Well, yes, the governor's department, the TED, which deals with technology and economic development, was here on Friday, kicking off a state tour to try to find out how to grow more skilled trades in the state. There's a large gap of skilled trades, and I think you know Kellogg Community College has been a leader in our state with its regional manufacturing center, and so we toured it and showed the administration what they do there, and you know they're changing people's lives by retraining them and teaching them these skills. And so we had business leaders in the room from, you know, Denzo and others. We had small business leaders. We had education officials locally and other community stakeholders, and we talked about how to bridge that gap. And so I thought it was a great discussion. I was happy to be a part of it, and I was grateful that we could show off Kellogg Community College to the governor's team, and hopefully they learn something they can use to help the state.
Well, that's encouraging, and we have done a good job in that respect. And still, though, I hear a lot of people saying, well, you know, what we need to do is give everyone in the country a free college education. And with no thought about how that's going to get paid for. But, you know, even if we were able to do that, who's going to fix your washing machine? You know, I mean, you can have a college degree and a great job, but, you know, if you can't find somebody to put a new furnace in your house, or fix your car when it breaks down, or build the new kitchen cabinets that you want, you know, we're out of balance there. And college is not for everybody. I mean, some people, you know, are really, really important members of our community and didn't go to college.
Yeah, and through the skilled trades, you know, people who for generations have been on government assistance are able to, you know, start a new page, a new chapter for their family by learning a skill like this.
Mm-hmm.
And these are high-paying jobs. And so there are so many people whose lives are being changed by Kellogg Community College and the great work they're doing there.
And certainly without those skills in our community, we're not going to be able to attract new employers either, because they need people who can do stuff, not just people who are college graduates. We need both.
That's right. That's right. And as you were saying, you know, there are ways to do it without expanding government. I think you saw in the state of the state, we heard Governor Whitmer say we were going to fix all infrastructure. We were going to give free college to everybody, and there were a number of other programs. And so our job as a legislature is to make sure that we don't have an enormous tax increase, because I thought these were great ideas. However, how are we going to pay for them? We didn't hear that. And the last time we had an expansion of government like this, we were a high-tax state. And when we were a high-tax state, we saw jobs leave our state in an unprecedented way. And so I'll be focused on making sure that we both invest more in the roads, do more to encourage skilled trades and community college in our state without an enormous tax increase, which I think would set our economy back greatly and harm this economic recovery we've seen over the last 8 years here in Michigan.
Are we going to end up with another tax increase to fix our roads?
Well, I think that's probably what the governor will propose, and I can't support that. I believe that we need to set priorities in our budget. You know, roads and infrastructure, education, and public safety need to be the #1 priorities. Those need to be fully funded before we go and fund other areas of government. And secondly, I believe all of the gas tax should go to roads, all of it, before anyone even proposes an increase in taxes. But, you know, I'm here to protect the hardworking people of Calhoun and Kalamazoo counties, and a tax increase right now is not the solution when there's so much other things in the budget that are not as high priorities as transportation.
Whenever somebody says what you just said, that we should have all of the gas tax go to roads, then somebody says, well, we got a bunch of it now funding our schools. What are we going to do about that shortfall?
Yeah, and so there's the school aid fund right now allows universities to pull from it. And so I would support what Governor Whitmer has said on this, believe it or not, that the colleges should not be draining the school aid fund. So if they weren't, then you wouldn't see much. You'd probably see the same amount of money going into education, and then the universities would be in the general fund competing with others just like they used to be. And so I think that's where we got to go. But the roads need to be fully funded, and that has to be the highest priority, really.
Yeah, before the costs just spiral to a point where we never can get a handle on them. That's already in certain areas. It's going to be far more expensive to fix than it would have been 5 years ago when we had the problem then. So,
right.
State Representative Matt Hall, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again. We'll get another update next month.
All right. Thank you, Tim.